Right.
years. It was just such a breakthrough, and it took probably another 4 or 5 years for another business to come even close to producing the revenue that one was producing.
Gotcha. So, okay. So next question is kind of, do you have any advice for the founder that's looking to go from the 0 to 1 napkin to product market fit? Because I personally see that part of the business as being very creative, like all of your stories, right? It's not formulaic. You can't just say, let's do this and follow this path. What's your best advice?
I give these stories as examples, Paul, because the reality is you kind of have to be super creative, and you got it exactly right. That don't get stuck thinking that you have to follow a playbook. In fact, quite the opposite. You kind of need to break the rules, or as I was saying to Greg, that like, hey, who knew you could hire a judge and a jury and a set of attorneys for this kind of a thing? It's still not common knowledge that that's even possible. So I had to kind of make it up, but it was necessary. So I look at founders who can really think on their feet and try different approaches. And those are the ones I tend to like investing in myself.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I hear that story too. And I think about like my experience at work, and I would say like, you've got to be really optimistic, because I can imagine like presenting that to people and everyone telling me like why it's not a smart idea to like do a mock, right? I mean, I feel like the resistance just starts to emerge when you immediately think of like trying to put that together, right?
Maybe it's like problem solving, right? Like you're always presented with problems, and you have to find creative ways to solve these problems. Would you say that's?
I usually refer to it as adaptability, meaning the market will give you signals, and the best founders that I know adapt to the signals they're receiving, as opposed to just bullheadedly moving forward on their own ideas. That usually ends badly if they're just bulling ahead without getting any kind of market signal. So for us, it was, you search and you try and find the signal. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now I got to lean in on the signal, and I got to adapt to that signal. And I don't want to stay tied to a particular way I thought it was going to go. Yeah. I'm going to adapt and move forward. And so that's something that's always certainly been a hallmark of my approach is most of the folks that have ever invested with me will tell you that that's something that they value about my approach.
Do you have any advice on the difference between conviction and adaptability?
You have to have a bit of both. And I think it's, again, reading the signals. I think there's stubbornness when you're avoiding you're either not getting signal and you're just pushing ahead anyway. Or there is just pure avoid, like I'm not gonna listen to the signal. I know better than whatever signal I'm getting. Right. So you have to. There's a fine line there. You kind of have to be convinced of your own approach. Steve Jobs always gets quoted about saying, "Hey, the customer doesn't actually know what they want," and I often would agree with him. So I'm suggesting that's not that the customer is always right. It's simply that you need to make sure that you're getting enough signal from whatever it is you're trying to validate your approach or invalidate it. And so number of different books, works, I study this topic incessantly, is how to be a good founder, talk about, how to refine ideas over time and methodologies associated with that. And I think that's a great way to approach.
If you were to try to start DocuSign today, like what would you do? What would you do differently? I'm sure you've got a bunch of ideas, but
oh my God. So the great news about today versus 2003 is that the tech stack is so much more accessible and inexpensive. So if you were to do it now, you could do it with a tiny fraction of the capitalization, because you wouldn't need the number of people, you wouldn't need the amount of compute. Look, I mean, in 2003, the DocuSign system is basically blockchain before the blockchain was invented. It's exactly the same fundamental base technology. It's a server-based point of truth where the document itself is the token, and you have to define the unassailable fact that there is a singular version of this document that everybody has accessed and talked to, interfaced with.